everybody, it's Caitlin. Welcome back to CoronaChat. Today is Monday, April 27th, and we've been in lockdown now for over a month, and there are lots of conversations going about when and how to reopen the economy, right? And the one thing that everybody keeps saying is that the first part of any strategy has to be testing. But one thing that's really important with testing has to do with how accurate those tests are, right? Not all tests are equal. We usually assume that if a test says we have an illness, then we definitely have it, and if the test says we don't have the illness, then we definitely don't. But that isn't exactly the case, right? Every test is imperfect, even tests we've had for a long time. So think about something like a pregnancy test, right? At-home pregnancy tests, the kind where you pee on a stick, are very accurate, but there are still some mistakes, right? So someone who isn't pregnant might get back a test saying they are pregnant, a false positive, right? And someone who is pregnant might get back a test saying they're not pregnant, a false negative, right? So both of these are inaccurate results, but they're inaccurate in different ways, right? So we public health folks tend to classify these inaccuracies as problems either with the sensitivity of the test or the specificity of the test. The sensitivity of the test has to do with how well the test detects things that are actually there. So if I'm actually pregnant, but the test says I'm not, it is not detecting my real pregnancy. The test has a sensitivity problem. In contrast, the specificity of the test has to do with how well the test is figuring out that the thing that it's testing for is not there. So if I'm not pregnant, but the test says I am pregnant, then the test has a specificity problem, right? Okay, so this is an interesting public health factoid, but who cares, right? Why not just say that whether the test is accurate or not accurate? Because these different types of inaccuracies mean different things in terms of our ability to act and in terms of what kinds of actions are appropriate. So let's start to think about this in terms of coronavirus. If the test is very sensitive and very specific, then we know that the test is giving us the right answer, right? So we can test people and let everybody who tests negative go on and go back to the workforce or go back to their normal lives, and we put everybody who tests positive in quarantine until they test negative, right? All good. But what if the test has some problems, right? So if the test is very sensitive but not very specific, then everyone with coronavirus will test positive, but some people who do not have coronavirus will also test positive, right? So if we quarantine everyone who tests positive and then let everyone who tests negative go back to normal, a sensitive but not specific test, right, will mean that we quarantine lots of people who were never infected and are never at any risk to anybody else, right? And that's not so great for them, but it doesn't do anything to affect the transmission of the virus. If, on the other hand, the test is not very sensitive, but it is very specific, right, then everyone who does not have coronavirus will test negative, but so will lots of people who do have coronavirus. And if we let everybody who tests negative go back to normal, then we'll let lots of people who have coronavirus go back into the workforce and everyone will get sick again. And this would be pretty bad. It would mean that we have to shut everything down again and go back to full kind of quarantine, lockdown, shelter in place, and wait it out all over again, right? Now, typically, we try to only let tests go public if they're very sensitive and very specific, right? But the different tests on the market that have been developed and deployed so quickly for coronavirus that they're not all of equal quality, right? And some tests are more accurate than others, and some have real accuracy problems. We're just starting to get a good handle on how bad some of these tests are, thanks to works from this multidisciplinary team of researchers at the University of California at San Francisco, UC Berkeley, the Chan Zuckerberg Biohub, and the Innovative Genomics Institute. And as this team continues their research, we should have a much better idea of which tests are the best ones to use as we start to lift the quarantine, lockdown, shelter-in-place orders, right? So the good news is that public health professionals have been acting as if the tests had issues since the beginning, right? This is why the World Health Organization, the CDC, all these other public health organizations have all recommended that people have multiple tests showing that they're negative for the virus before they can go back out in public, right? We were trying to get ahead of any of these issues. Now, for those of you who are ahead of the curve and saying like, wait a minute. So does this help to explain what's happening with all of those people who are reinfected? I thought people were getting reinfected, but maybe they're not getting reinfected. You're totally on the right path. So we'll pick up that question tomorrow. Until then, remember we're all in this together. Stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll see you back here tomorrow on CoronaChat.